entered her room, needing to get something before she could continue her day. But after she got a bit past the door, said door suddenly slammed behind her, revealing Himiko was behind it. Eri jumped up in fear and looked behind her, but quickly calmed down a bit when she saw it was just Himiko. Himiko, please don't scare me like that. Sabi, I just wanted to ask you a question. Himiko said. To most people, her tone would sound pretty casual. However, Eri was not like most people. She'd grown up around Yakuza, and she could hear the underlying edge in her voice, and see that there was something behind that cheerful expression she was putting on. It unnerved her. A lot. What question? Eri asked, backing away in fear. Himiko pulled out a folded paper and slowly unfolded it, revealing it to a picture of Himiko Toga, her teenage version. Eri's eyes widened with fear. Where did you get that? I found it on the internet, Himiko answered, not dropping her cheerful tone. It was super duper hard to find. But after a LOL of searching, I found something interesting. I found this super cute girl who looks a lot like me. And she's also named Himiko Toga. Like I was. But they said this girl was a murderer. And that she mysteriously disappeared. And that there was this girl that got adopted by the Midoriya Foundation, who just so happens to look a lot like her. Would you know about that, Eri? Eri gulpe. Come on, Eri. I'm not mad at you. Himiko said honestly, and Eri, to the best of her ability, couldn't feel any dishonesty in that statement. Himiko seemed to drop the fake cheerfulness, and rather than being angry, she seemed to be, at most, a bit annoyed, but mostly she was curious. I just want to know what's going on. Come on. We're sisters, right? And sisters don't keep secrets from each other. Right. Eri hesitated, and tears started to appear in the corner of her eyes. Dad told me not to tell you. He made me promise. Himiko frowned. Thought so. Oh well. I already got my answer from your cute little expressions. Guess I'll just ask Daddy about it then. Then Himiko approached Eri, who looked at her fearfully, still seeming like she was about to cry, and she placed her hand on Eri's head and petted it. There, Eri, I told you I'm not mad, so you don't need to cry. Why, you're really not mad? Eri asked, sounding equal parts relieved and confused. Not really. I just want to learn what happened. Himiko explained honestly. And I can never be mad at my cute little sister. Are you mad at Dad? Eri asked. Himiko paused and thought about it. Probably not, but we'll see. Izuku was toiling away at his paperwork as fast as he could. He had a lot to do today, and he needed to get this work done for Mirai Orphanage before he could get onto any of it. Himiko said, suddenly appearing in front of Izuku's desk, with no one having noticed her come in. Mistress Himiko, Master Midoriya has told you numerous times to knock when you come into a room. Sue, who was at Izuku's side, reminded her. It's fine. Izuku sighed. Himiko had picked up a bit of a bad habit of testing her ninja skills whenever she could, ever since she started getting taught by Giza, which would be cute if she wasn't scarily good at it. Himiko, I'm sorry, but I'm busy right now. I don't have time to play. That's okay. I just wanted to ask you about something. Himiko said, backing up a bit. Oh, okay. What do you need? Izuku said, while he was busy if one of the kids needed help. That took priority. I just want to know what you're hiding from me, Himiko asked cheerfully. Izuku's stomach dropped, and a bit of nervous sweat went down the side of his face. What do you mean? Himiko pulled out the folded paper and unfolded it, revealing the picture of her teenage self. Where did you get that? Izuku asked strictly. Crap. The internet. I printed it out. Himiko explained. You see, I went to the mall, and while we were there, this lady seemed to know who I was, and she was really upset. Mama Ochiko seemed to know what she was upset about, but she wouldn't tell me. So I had to do my own research. It was super boring and took super long. But eventually I found this one place where some people were talking about me. Or this older me, I guess. They said that she was a murderer and that the Midoriya Foundation turned her into a child and took her. They even showed a picture of me next to this older me. Izuka held back the urge to slam his head into his desk. Of course, she'd find out. Unlike Tenko and Toya, hiding the fact that Himiko had once been a villain was near impossible. For one, Tamura Shigaraki and Dabi's identities were not known to the public. They used fake names, and they had drastically different appearances to Tenko Shimura and Toya Todoroki respectively. This was not the case for Himiko Toga. Not only was Himiko's identity known, but she didn't even have a villain name anyway. And her teenage self looked almost exactly like her younger self, just older. If anyone who knew of Himiko Toga saw Himiko Midoriya, they'd make the connection immediately. So the only thing Izuku could do was try to wipe any proof of Himiko Toga's existence away. Thankfully, Himiko Toga was not well known. Sure was a murderer, but there were thousands of murderers in Japan. And Himiko Toga had neither killed all that many people nor did she kill anyone important. So it was easy to get most people to just forget she existed after Izuku wiped every trace of her existence online and on paper. Note the word, most people. The thing that made hiding Himiko's identity near impossible was the people who refused to forget. The people who lost loved ones to Himiko Toga's madness. Izuka knew as soon as those people saw Himiko Midoriya, they'd know it was just Himiko Toga aged down. And since Eri's quirk was public knowledge, it didn't take much to put two and two together. Then those people would go to the internet and start posting about Himiko. Of course, Izuka had his information team immediately get rid of anything involving Himiko, and he made sure that none of these ever got any media coverage. But his people couldn't get everything down instantly, nor could they permanently shut up the people putting up these posts and articles and the like. I mean, he could, but not in any way that wouldn't violate his morals. And it looked like Himiko had managed to find one of those articles before his men could take it down. Susu, feel like telling the truth now? Himiko asked teasingly. Well, at least she doesn't seem upset. Izuku rubbed the bridge of his nose. Fine, I guess I can't hide it from you any longer. Yes, you were once a villain. You grew up under your parents' abusive household and a world that just didn't understand you. You forced yourself to act normal, to try and be like everyone else for the sake of fitting in, and so your parents didn't hurt you. But having to repress yourself for so long eventually drove you insane. And you became bloodthirsty, in a murderous way. Eventually, you teamed up with the League of Villains and attacked the kids. In a panic, Eri used her quirk on you, and you ended up like this. Himiko took a second to really take that in. He couldn't tell what she was thinking. Her expression was pretty blank until it morphed into that of confusion, as well as a bit of fear. Why? Why what? Izuku asked. Why did you adopt me? Himiko asked, her voice going a bit quiet, as she looked down at the ground. I tried to hurt you, and everyone's so. Why don't you just send me to jail? Izuka sighed and gave her a sad look. I didn't think that was fair. Sure you, or I guess, your older self made bad decisions, but a lot of that was because of the horrible experience you went through. It really wasn't fair. I know life isn't fair, and like I said, your older self still made those decisions herself and should suffer the consequences of her actions. But then I saw you, the you as you are now, and I wondered what would happen if you didn't have to go through all that terrible stuff. If someone gave the care and attention you deserved. And I couldn't bring myself to turn you back. Himiko just stared at him. Her eyes were so full of emotion that he couldn't tell what she was really feeling. Awe, fear, confusion, love, and more. For a while, there was silence as Izuku waited for Himiko to respond. However, while he waited, a fear ate away at him. A doubt he'd had in his mind for so long that now was coming to the forefront. Eventually, Izuku spoke up. Himiko, do you want to turn back into Dash? No, Himiko said, cutting him off. Her tone was cold, firm, and almost harsh. Not with any anger, but with fear. And yet despite that, Izuku felt himself breathe a sigh of relief. You really care about me that much? Himiko asked, her voice filled with a mix of desperation and disbelief. When I first saw you, I saw someone in need of help. Now you're my own daughter, both by chance and now by choice. And I care for you, just as much I care for every other one of my children, regardless of what you used to be. Izuku told her wholeheartedly, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that this time, you grow up with everything you'll ever need. Then, can I have a hug? Himiko asked, holding out her arms. Izuku smiled and quickly got up, got around his desk, and scooped her up into a hug. Whenever you'd like. Himiko lay down on her bed, staring at the ceiling. All of this was just so overwhelming. First of all, she was a murderer. Or was she? Was that an older, different version of her? Still her? Izuku seemed to imply that he thought of them as different people, so she'd do the same. But that still meant that a version of her that she could grow into turned into a crazy murderer. And that crazy murderer hurt a lot of people. She recalled that woman at the mall. Himiko had been used to being looked at with contempt. But that wasn't just contempt in that woman's eyes. It was hatred. Hatred, sadness, and loss. All of it was directed at her, because she'd taken away someone they loved. She suddenly felt like she'd gotten punched in the stomach. Himiko had never really thought much about death. Everything dies eventually, so she didn't really feel too bad when she heard someone had died. If anything, people tended to look cuter when they were dead. But seeing just how much pain that woman was in, it made her imagine what would happen if she lost someone she loved. Like her new family. That made it feel like she'd gotten punched in the heart. What was future her thinking? Sure, she absolutely hated being with her parents. And she didn't like school all that much either. But she never wanted to kill anyone. She loved blood, but she didn't need to kill people to get that. Himiko just didn't understand how it got to that point. Actually, thinking about it harder, she might have a clue. Up until just now, she never really thought much of death, until she imagined losing someone she loved. But without the Midoriya Foundation, did she really ever have someone she loved? Did her older self just never find a single person who she'd miss when they were gone? Or did she just never really think about it like that? That was a terrifying and horribly sad thought. Honestly, she didn't understand why Izuku would think she ever wanted to turn back. Why would she ever want to go back to being an insane psycho-murderer with a miserable life? She much preferred her current life, with rich, loving parents, lots of adorable siblings, and free access to blood whenever she wanted. Really, she'd rather not have known about her older villain self. She'd even asked Izuku if Kyoku could remove her memories of finding out about it. But then Izuku pointed out that she'd just inevitably find out about it again. Curse her incredible genius. Speaking of identities, while she was never told outright, she had pretty much figured out that Tenko and Toya had also been villains, and that Izuku had Tenko's quirk removed. She figured it was probably for the best. After all, she would rather have not figured it out, so why ruin it for them? And she trusted that Izuku was doing what was best for them. The man was simply a saint. Just as Izuku would make sure she got everything she could want, Himiko would make sure she didn't go crazy this time around. She'd been blessed a chance for a better life, and there was no way she was wasting it. Himiko slapped her cheeks and got up. Alright, enough thinking about the past/future. I'm gonna do something nice for everyone. Time to finally see if I can make a cake with blood instead of milk.